turn our chairs in, it's a constant problem on that side. Right, moving and turning sideways, and people get down, pictures or whatever.
We need to have a very tight way of deciding who goes first. You draw the star, whoever gets the star goes first. And say she draws the card to go first, then the questions will go around. Closing statements will go the other way, so the first shall be last and the last shall be first. So you'll draw a card, if you get the star, you first. We're starting. Oh, she got the star, so we'll start right there. The questions will go that way.
Leslie will get the first question.
Like this. Wow, the closing statements, so she'll be last, I'll start there since he was last.
As long as we all know how it works,
We know
I
how-
just follow.
We try to be as fair as we can.
I know. Usually I'm watching from out there when y'all are doing all this stuff.
Touch this on.
Robin, we were ready for you.
Light comes on above the push.
Okay, here you go.
I just turn my
Hey, I'm gonna go ahead and, do we have that? Do you have that information? I'm gonna go ahead and get started. And, before we get started, you know, we don't usually do this, but I really felt like we should take just a moment to breathe and to be thankful. And if you'd like to, you can pray to yourself. I'd like to take a moment of silence to honor those people who, in Las Vegas, who were hurt or injured or killed, and their families. All right, now let's get on with the business at hand. I wanted to tell you, I started a few minutes early so I can tell you about the League of Women Voters. I'm Robin Collins. I'm president of the League of Women Voters of Carrollton, Carroll County. And we have lots of information over here for you that you might want to look at. First of all, I have just one copy of the protocols. If somebody has a question and they want to look at the copy of the protocols, but just, you know, leave it there when you're done. I also have a little sign-up sheet if anybody is interested in more information about the league or league events. And, you know, you could put your name and email address. And I always put, please write legibly, because I don't see well. So that'll be over there. Then we have information about membership. The league is open to both men and women, age 16 years old and older. With no regard to status of citizenship. That's a new rule about 2 years ago. So it's a lot to do in our league here in Carroll County, and we do a lot of things. Let me just mention a couple of things. First of all, we do a political directory, and I have copies of that over there too for you. On this political directory, we have everything from the President of the United States, the Animal Control Officer of Carroll County, that you can contact. And we encourage you to write, even handwrite, to people who are your legislators and people who are in elected office and in appointed offices. I also have information. Let's see, what else does the league do? Well, we do candidate forums. We have our annual meetings every year that we have a special speaker that comes in. Usually it's about topics that are of interest to the league locally and sometimes at the state or the national level. And we are associated at the state and the national level. As a matter of fact, I'm actually second vice president of the state of the League of Women Voters of Georgia. And so I do work for that too. We also do a program every year called Great Decisions. Now that is a fantastic program that is guided for us by the Foreign Policy Association. And it's every Thursday night in February and March. And usually we begin about 6 or 6:30. And we have a DVD first, and then by 7 o'clock we start the discussion. And usually we have a topic given to us by the Foreign Policy Association and some study sheets that we could go over. And then we have a professor from West Georgia usually that talks about the topic. And there are various international topics and some domestic topics. So that's very interesting that you might like. We've been doing that, I think it's nearly 25 years. So that's good. All right, now then, did mention that we're going to be live streaming, so everybody knows. And we also, looks like we have West Georgia here. That's the first, actually, and we're glad to have them here. And we have Dillard here that sometimes tapes. And next I'd like to introduce Dr. Bruce Lyon. He's our moderator. I call him now the co-moderator. Did you notice that, Kathy?
That's wonderful.
Kathy used to be the assistant moderator, but I decided this year they are
I like
co-moderators.
Promotions are good.
Yeah, that's good. So take it away, Bruce.
Okay, well, let me stand here during this first part so I can see you better and you can see me during these introductions. We're glad to be back in Villa Rica for the 24th time, I guess, doing one of these forums. We've been here a lot, and we appreciate your tolerance for us. We will need to particularly welcome our candidates this evening. They will be the most important people here. On my far left, Mr. Larry Kors, Danny Carter. To my immediate left, Leslie McPherson here, and then Bernice Brooks on my far right. So we're glad to have all of you folks here. These candidates for wards 3 and 5 for Villa Rica City Council. We have a co-moderator here. As you already know, Kathy, my wife, Kathy Lyon, will serve in that capacity tonight. Timekeeper will be Annelle Colvins. She has some paddles over there, and she will use the stop paddle on you once you reach the 2-minute limit on your responses to the questions that we'll be asking you. The ground rules are pretty sparse. We are going to ask the candidates to restrict their opening statements to 2 minutes. Similarly, we want them to restrict their responses to your questions to 2 minutes. And then when they give their closing statements, again, we'd like a 2-minute limitation on those as well. We have solicited questions already from various people, including some of the league members. And if you have questions that occur to you as we progress this evening, why, please write them down on the cards that you'll see here, and or that will be handed to you. And someone from the league will be available to pick those up from you and bring them up to my co-moderator. And she will sort through these and get them, keep them organized, and try to keep me organized as well in the process. We are a nonpartisan organization, and so in keeping with that, we do ask always that the audience refrain from applauding or demonstrating support for any of the candidates here this evening, and we also ask that you kill your cell phones for the next hour or so. I think that covers everything that we needed to cover prior to beginning. The order of speaking has been determined by drawing of cards, and Bernice was the lucky winner, and so she will give the opening statement, and then we'll progress to her left this direction for the rest of the opening statements. The first closing statement tonight then will be given by Larry, and we'll go this way for the closing statement. So Bernice, please go ahead.
Good evening. I am so happy. Can you hear me?
Is the red light on?
The light's on.
Then it's on.
Good evening. I am so glad that you came out tonight to hear what we have to say, especially me. I want you to know that I have 48 years of experience as a public servant. I've been a teacher assistant, a classroom teacher, an administrator, and a school board member. And I feel that I'm very qualified to serve as a council member. I am very familiar with strategic planning. I'm familiar with budget processes. I'm familiar with governance, and I work well with other people. I want you to know that I don't have a Brooks's agenda. I have a people's agenda. And with all the necessary skills that I have, I feel that in a collaborative manner, we can work through some issues here in Villa Rica and begin to make this place a better place for all of our citizens. As I've stated before in my letter, citizens, of Villa Rica are number one. And I do want them to know that by knowing that I don't have all the answers, but I'm here to help work through them.
Okay. Leslie?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for, is that working? I'm having the same problem. Can you hear that?
We can't.
It's good.
Can't remember that council meeting.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for taking out of your time to be here tonight, and I'd also like to thank the League of Women Voters for giving us this opportunity. I first ran for city council about this time of year, about 3.5 years ago, or just over that. Since then, the people of Ward 3 and the city have seen that I've kept my principles, kept my word, and been a responsive advocate for them. All elections are important, but I think this is an especially important election. I think it's because of the crucial juncture we are at in our city right now. During the years I've served, I've gained a wealth of information and experience on the ins and outs of our city government and the different departments and how the city operates. I've been a part of opportunities, and Villa Rica has expected and helped to put in place. I worked to help put into place a vision plan for the future of Villa Rica. It's taken a lot of time, to be honest, to really get a grasp and understand the complexities of some of the issues and challenges that we're going to face and are facing. Some of those are water and sewer, the debt, and to manage our growth. We want to manage it, not have it manage us, which would give us the dreaded urban sprawl that we see in some communities around us. Stability and professionalism on our city staff is a must. And any of us who serve on the governing body have to realize that we're going to have to tighten our belt and our budget and prioritize our needs from our wants, just like families have to do. I may want a spa in my backyard, but if the roof is leaking and damaging our home, and further damaging our home, I think most of us know which one needs to come first. We have some wonderful opportunities coming ahead for Villa Rica, along with jobs, but we also have some tough decisions that we're going to have to make.
Danny?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters of Carrollton and Carroll County for sponsoring this forum tonight. Also, thanks to the public for showing up. It's nice to see some public out there. It's the only way we get for our council meetings. My name is Danny Carter, and I am the Villa Rica City Council representative for Ward 5. My wife Lynn and I have 3 grown children and 2 grandchildren. I retired in December of 1999 from Lockheed, and after 33 years of service, started building a house on Edge Road in January of 2000, and in November 2000 we moved down to Villa Rica. So I've been here a little while. I served on the Villa Rica City Council from 2004 through 7 as a representative of Ward 1. In 2011, the wards were reshaped, and in 2013 I was elected to serve as the Ward 5 representative. During my first council term, I served on the Villa Rica Public Facility Authority, which was overseeing the construction of the new Ultra Niagara West wastewater treatment plant. In 2008, I was off the council and they appointed me to be the only non-council member of the Public Facility Authority until completion of that plant. During the second term, I had been serving on the highly successful Villa Rica Development Authority, bringing jobs to Villa Rica through new industries and businesses. Villa Rica is a safe, friendly, people-oriented city with a variety of parks and new businesses that support the needs of the people. And I'm running for re-election because I love Villa Rica, and I believe that slow, steady, planned growth is what Villa Rica needs. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And finally, Larry.
Good evening. I'm Larry Coors, a 25-year resident of Villa Rica, Georgia. My wife, Iris Miller, who's in the audience with us tonight, is a native of Villa Rica. We've lived in our house that Charles Cole built for us in 1992. We still remember Hurricane Andrew. Andrew had an effect on our house as Andrew hit Miami about the time our roof was going on. We had to wait for the roofing materials to go back on the market, and Andrew set us back a month or so. I was born and raised in the Midwest, living in Indianapolis and Cleveland. I achieved a rank of life in Boy Scouts. Our family moved to Atlanta in 1969. I'm a 1973 graduate of Clarkston High School, and I'm a 1977 graduate of Berry College with a Bachelor of Arts degree in History, Political Science, and Business. After the Army, I went to work for short stints in the rental business. But this was the early 1980s, and the economy was very tight. I later went to work for the state of Georgia as an auditor. I audited corporate America for compliance with the tax laws of Georgia, and I retired after 25 years of service. In retirement, I've taken up cattle farming, raising pecans, and master gardening. I've been raising cattle for the last 3 years. It is both demanding and very fun. No 2 days are actually the same. The chores we all saw on the TV shows like Lassie, Bonanza, and Gunsmoke, I'm aging myself, they're very real. The animals need to be fed and watered, the fence needs to be mended, fertilize the pasture, cut the hay, bale the hay, move the hay. Did you collect the soil sample, Larry? Did you service the tractors and the other machinery? Did you meet the Department of Agriculture agent looking at your grant application? Did you meet the power company inspector to locate the power for the new well? Did you meet the new well company man to spot the new well? How's that budget working for you? Government, like farming, has its daily chores that must be done. It is very frustrating at times, yet rewarding too. I will help in the chores that our city must do. I've been attending the city council since 1993. Many a meeting.
Here.
All right. Our first question. Villa Rica's current population is expected to skyrocket to nearly 35,000 by the year 2025, taking the city above the current population of Carrollton. What are your thoughts on how the city can manage that growth while maintaining a hometown feel and level of service? And since Bernice had the first opening statement, Leslie will be the first to respond to this question. So,
just a slight correction. The growth that they are expecting, we have not met where they expected we would be even now. So while we do expect major growth, we think it's a little overinflated, the numbers that have been publicized. Nonetheless, unless something changes in the economy drastically, we are going to grow. And we're going to grow quite a bit. I think that's one of the reasons we felt the need that it was so important to hire a city engineer. There's some things that have occurred in the past where if you don't have the staff on board, and we're dealing with that, are we not? From years ago, when the crash hit, there was explosive growth, but we weren't ready for it. And as a result, we ended up with neighborhoods only partially done, or maybe they didn't have the things that were required or the bonding. And so there's things we're going to have to be very careful about. The other thing is, I think we think a lot about not too far from here, where if you get off the highway, it seems like a nightmare. And that's the thing I want to avoid. How we move traffic around, I'll be honest, we set policy, but I'm also going to be relying on staff and people that understand traffic engineering and that sort of thing, so we don't have those nightmare scenarios that they are experiencing and that we experience when we go there and visit. In the downtown area, I think there's a way with the historic preservation that we can keep that area quaint and keep the mom and pop businesses. Some of that's done through planning and zoning and what you allow and what you don't allow, and one of that would be you wouldn't see a big box store in our historic downtown, because it's really important that we retain the nature there, that historic feel, and those small mom and pop business that we enjoy now.
all right. Danny. you would be up next.
Okay, well, the major needs, if we're going to grow like that, and is that we're in need of water, and we're in the process now of trying to line up a water supply, because you can't grow without water. You just no way to do it. We did take care of our sewer needs, so when we built the electrolytic plant, it'll take care of the whole city, and we're in the process of trying to join the Mill Lake side over to the West plant, so that we can use that one plant to go to the city for the foreseeable future. There's a north bypass going on, and it is underway. It's going to divert some of the heavy traffic, especially the semi-trucks, away from the downtown area. It's going to allow us to create a beautiful downtown area. When you get semi-trucks coming through, you got problems, so you can't really do what you want to do with heavy traffic like that. So once we establish a good water supply and the sewer is taken care of, then it's just a matter of planning the growth and not letting it get out of hand and run away from us, because we don't want runaway growth. We want slow, steady, planned growth. Thank you.
Okay. And Larry.
Repeat the question, please.
Yes, could you give it back? Villa Rica's current population is expected to skyrocket to nearly 35,000 by the year 2025, taking the city above the current population of Carrollton. What are your thoughts on how the city can manage that growth while maintaining a hometown feel and level of service?
The growth has to be controlled through proper planning and zoning. It has to start there. The future land use maps must be consulted and continue to be updated. The infrastructure that will lead us to be able to look at the infrastructure and see where our weaknesses and strengths are, and we can try to have the growth more in our strong areas while we try to work up our weak areas and for future growth and development. We're in need of having the comprehensive plan updated, and we've been, the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission have been asking for this to be done, and as a member of the commission, we're asking, I'll say right here tonight, we need to have this in budget for next year so that we can plan for that and have our adequate training so that we can give adequate advice as a Civilian Review Commission to help the council be able to draft correct, and the administration be able to draft correct policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Bernice.
As a council, a mayor, and the staff, we must be strategically planning for that future. We have a few years now, and I am familiar with budget processes. I am familiar with the governance and all of that. It's going to take all of us sitting down in a collaborative way, working on our water system first, and getting the infrastructure in place so that we can allow people to come in. When they come, the first thing they want to know is, do we have a good water supply? Secondly, they want to know if our schools are good. Thirdly, they want to know if there is good recreation for the family. And finally, they want to know if the city is safe. So we're going to, as a group, sit down and work out a strategic plan that will incorporate growth.
Okay.
All
You're
right.
entitled to at least 30 seconds more because of the train, if you like to say
And
anything more.
the key to all of that will be our water situation being in place. And I know that all of us are familiar with the concerns because we have been sharing that for the last 5 years, I know. But we have got to bite the bullet and make sure that we do the things within the budget that will not cause citizens to feel that they are overtaxed, but yet work on it in a way that we are comfortable with how we are doing things.
Okay, good. Thank you. You all, or a couple of you at least, have alluded to the water problem. This question relates specifically to that. This person says there apparently are water problems in the city related to budget and infrastructure. What specifically would you do to resolve these? And would it involve a tax increase, perhaps an increase in fees? Danny, you would be the first to respond to this.
Okay, water is a big issue. We have, unfortunately, we know that we have some water leaking out of our system to the rate of about 300,000 gallons a day. It's a bad deal. It's a large loss, and we're going to put together a plan to try to resolve where we're losing that water, because if you stop the water loss, you save a lot of money. So that's one of the first things we'll do. We'll move on to putting together a plan of how we're going to get our water, because we don't have really about enough water for the whole city. We can't produce enough water. We have to buy water. So, and we're trying to negotiate with the different communities that supply water around us so that we will have an adequate supply. That's basically what the plan we have ongoing right now.
Okay, thank you. And Larry?
The water supply needs to be addressed on a regional basis. You have to understand that Douglas County is pulling, or has been able to pull, water from Lake Allatoona. We have Carroll County impounding their own water, and they have more impounded than they actually have a market for. We as a city are, and this is not unusual for a municipality like ours, to not be self-sufficient in water. The hurdles and the rules are very, very high to be able to jump over and jump through in order to be able to produce your own water. And if we were to start today, I think it'd probably take us, I think I've heard somewhere in the neighborhood of well over 20 years for us to be able to impound the water, collect the water, and be even permitted to pull the first lick of water out of any kind of surface storage facility. The infrastructure would then also have to be addressed in the appropriate manner, and budget will have to be allocated for it. Unfortunately, nobody's going to like to hear this, but yes, fees will have to go up. Fees are probably going to have to go up this next year anyway, in the upcoming year, no matter who is actually elected. It's an enterprise fund, meaning that it has it's its own business, and it's not to be relied upon. It's supposed to be self-sufficient. Well, it's not self-sufficient. It's actually running in the black. Until 4 years ago, we weren't in the black. We were in the black. We were not in the red. We did not have a deficit. The last 4 years, we have had a deficit. And the general fund has been funding the water fund. So you will see some unfortunate news coming across your water bills out of the council in the upcoming years. Thank you.
Okay, and Bernice?
I would recommend that we devise a plan with the necessary information, particularly the infrastructure. And we're going to phase this plan in through a cost system over a period of 3 to 5 years. And we need to share that plan in a transparency way with the taxpayers of this city. And with the clarity and begin the process of correcting that infrastructure. Because if you're losing 300,000 gallons a day, you're losing a lot of dollars. And if we can correct the infrastructure, get the water flowing, and kind of work with our people, I think they will understand, because I'm understanding that we are trying to correct problems with water and infrastructure from the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s. So somewhere down the line, we're just going to, again, have to do what we need to do to protect our systems, our monies, and all of that. And I feel like our taxpayers would be considerate of us if we present them the plan that we have devised and let them see the cost factor in it. What we tend to do is not tell them how much it costs. And if you share that with your citizens and let them know somewhere we all have to pay, then I think they will be understanding enough to allow us to do that. Again, they are the number one people of this city. And then I'd like to add to that, not one of us is as smart as all of us.
Thank you. And Leslie?
Well, I was talking about we were going to have to make some hard decisions about some issues. In order to fix a problem, you need to understand the problem, and you need to have an idea of how much it's going to cost. We have two enterprise funds, water, sewer, and our solid waste. I would correct what Mr. Kaur said, is this has not been a problem with it being self-sustaining just for the last 4 years. This has been going on for a long time. And the thing is, if we do government properly, those are supposed to be self-sustaining. They're supposed to pay for themselves. Not only are they not paying for themselves, but this is what we've done. We've initiated a rate study to help us figure out what is it, what it's costing us to produce it, what type of rates have to be charged, and it's going to be a little different for, say, an industrial. What would the rates that would be charged for a real heavy user like an industrial company compared to regular citizens? The problem, not only is it running in the black, but we've got to have the money to replace the infrastructure. And so the funds aren't self-sufficient. They're being subsidized by property owners from the main budget. So we're paying for it. It's just that it's being paid from the general fund by people that own property, and they're subsidizing other people's water. We need to wait for the rate study. We need to find out where we're losing water, because that's a significant factor, and we have two counties we need to negotiate with, and that's Carroll County and Douglas County, because we also have to buy some of our water. Just remember, this is beyond an inconvenience. I have people that have a problem flushing their toilet living in my ward, but there's people who could lose their house if we can't put a fire out in their home.
Okay, thank you. This next question will be Larry's turn to answer first. Actually, there are two questions here, and I have to admit I'm not familiar with the subject, so I'm just going to go ahead and ask it. How do you plan to incorporate and fund the RSVP plan for the city's future?
The RSVP is actually part of the downtown development plan. It should be funded in the business community. It has a lot of dynamics to it, and that the citizens want to see in their community, and they go to other towns and municipalities when they go on vacation, or even they're just their daily commuting, and they see things that are actually encouraging to them, that places they like to go, maybe eat, shop at, and they like to see this back in our downtown also. So in cooperation with government and the business community needs to kind of tweak this a little bit and listen to their customers and say, what do you want and how can I get this for you? The government will then put other items into play, such as the splash park, the hotel, the conference center, the parking, trying to make downtown more accessible along with the road, and we'll try to make it more accessible and a fun place to come to. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Bernice, you will be up next.
I'm looking at this from the point that since we have been certified as a downtown development entity, we need to look at private funding as well as local funding and governmental funding in such a way that this will not take away from the budget that we have already stretched to the max. There are lots of fundings out there for various activities, and we need to get our staff to look at those, see what's appropriate for this area. And I know it's a small town, but we've got lots of things that we can show. For an example, we have Thomas Dorsey, we have A.C. Candler, we have the gold mine, we have all of these things that, all of these amenities which are inviting. I have people who I have been in touch with who don't live in this area. They know about it and they want to come, but then on the other hand they say, well, there are no hotels close around and all of this. If we can take some of our revenues from our taxes, hotel taxes and so forth, and work on a plan that will allow us, that's along with the taxpayers, do a seamless kind of plan, a comprehensive plan, so that we won't overstretch what we've already got. I just feel like we haven't tapped all the sources that we can, sources of resources that will help us to grow in such a systematic way.
Okay, and Leslie?
The RSV plan is a really exciting thing that has been developed for the city of Villa Rica. It's basically a downtown vision plan. And the really neat thing about it wasn't the mayor and council and staff who said, this is what we want to do. Hundreds upon hundreds of citizens had input in what they wanted to see in our downtown area. And that's what's so cool about it, is because it had buy-in from the community. As far as funding goes for it, I believe there's got to be some budget money for that sort of thing. But you know what? When you set up an environment in your city that encourages business to come, business friendly, you're efficient with your staff, for them to move in, sometimes you have to do some recruiting of those businesses. It would naturally fund itself in a lot of ways, because if they're successful, the city is also successful because they're paying those taxes that help that. Some things as simple as the parklets you'll see out here were done with a little bit of grant money from the city, and the rest of it was privately funded by those businesses themselves. Those are small little aspects. But I will say this, as much as we want to do all of that, based on some of our water and sewer issues, we may have to slow down some of those improvements as far as budgeting them over time, because we've got to prioritize the needs versus the wants. I'll say also that the city was chosen for this. In a sense, we won it. And we got it, I think, at a third the cost, University of Georgia, a third of the cost of what it would have taken to get a professional consulting company to come in and help us work through all of this with our citizens. So I'm excited about it, and we're already initiating it. So, we may have to slow it down a little bit, but we're going to get it done.
All right, thank you. Danny?
Yes, sir. We all want to see a beautiful downtown. If you go visit around the area, you go to Simone, they did a beautiful job with their downtown area. So we'd like to spruce up our downtown and turn it into something really attractive that'll attract people down to it. I think we're going to have to streamline our processes, because we've got businesses that would love to come in, but they have a hard time getting in because we can't get them in because our processes hold things up. They'll come in and we'll tell them what they need to do, and then they'll go away, and then we'll tell them, come back, and we got some other things you need to know about. So we're holding our processes. We're going to have to do something about those, make it better. hopefully there's some grants out there, because the city can't afford to pay the whole bill on this thing, but we do want to spruce up downtown. We do want a beautiful downtown area. We do want some trails and some private vehicle paths to be able to get the people downtown. We want to attract the people downtown to where they can enjoy life. We don't want to have parking lots to park the cars. We'd like to have a very friendly community, bicycles, golf carts. We started actually on that process several years ago to create the paths that bring the people downtown, but we've kind of fell by the wayside on that one. The businesses are going to have to jump in and try to help on this. We'll help as much as we can, but we definitely don't have this money and resources to take over the whole project. Thank you.
Okay. And while on the subject of development, we have a couple of questions here on the TAD. What's your position on the tax allocation district, the proposed tax allocation district for Villa Rica? Bernice, looks like you're up to answer this one first.
All right. Excuse me. On paper, the tax allocated district looks well. It appears to be a win-win for all, but there are a number of questions that I need answered. For an example, I know that there is 100 acres of property, somewhat wooded, that will connect Mirror Lake to the city of Villa Rica. And I would love to say I would vote for it today, but I don't know how many families are going to be displaced. I don't know exactly where the roadway's coming. But as I read about the tax allotted district, I think it would be good for the city, because there is always that part of the city that seems to be richer than the part over here. And we want all citizens to know that you're a part of this city. And as far as I'm concerned, if I were to vote today, I would have to say I'm not sure about that until I get more information. I've seen all the footprint of just what has been presented, and I like that. I do know that from my experiences that perhaps some families are going to be displaced. What are we going to do about them? Can they afford another kind of house? There are so many unanswered questions about it right now. But it appears to be one of those things we need to look at in our process of making it a comprehensive plan for the city.
Thank you. We've got some interference here somewhere. I'm not sure what the source of the noise is.
It only happens when she speaks.
Oh, really? Well, we'll just deal with that then. That's fine. Leslie, your turn.
The tax allocation district has to do with the extension that we want to make from Shoreline, which is on, you could say Mirror Lake, but there's a lot of other people that live over there. I'm one of them, and I don't live in Mirror Lake. And there's some older residents on those streets to connect basically a type of parkway and a multi-use paths that would allow golf carts, cars, pedestrians, bicycles, to be able to connect the two sides of town and bring that side of town right into here and vice versa. And the way the tax district works is this. The idea is to help what's getting built around it to help pay for that road. It's not a cheap road. It's expensive to do that. And so the TAD, Tax Allocation District, is the idea of letting it help pay for itself. Now, we do have some money set aside for that, but we're trying to be creative. Now, here's the thing. I'm not ready to make a decision yet. I've listened to what the city manager has said on it. We're still waiting for some studies and feasibility to see how realistic the numbers are on what's planned and wanting to come in there, and could it give us the numbers we need for that infrastructure. And that's the other thing. The development that would come in there would help pay for the infrastructure there, would take a great load off the city. sometimes it can sound too good to be true, and that's why I want more numbers first, because we've really got to be careful. And that's where I am on it at this point.
Okay, thank you. And Danny?
I have to agree with Councilman McPherson. It's a little early to be deciding whether it's a good or bad thing. It sounds good, maybe it's still going to be true. It's going to be a nice connector from Shoreline downtown. We've got Mill Lake cut off by itself, so we're looking forward to putting a road in and things are going to grow around that road. There's a community plan for the other end of that road. And all this got to be paid for somehow, especially the road. And we really don't have that kind of money. So we're going to have to be legislative here and figure out exactly how to pay for that road. I think it's a good idea. The town, I'm not so sure about yet. With McPherson over there, we need some more numbers. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with when it comes to the TAD before we move forward on that. Thank you.
Okay, and finally Larry.
The TAD is not a new concept of taxation, but the problem with it is that it's based on property tax values based on a time, say today, and it has its basis on increased value and the tax on that increased value in the future. So it'd be future years. So you're going to have a revenue collection once a year, whereas you actually need money every month of the year going forward as you're trying to go into these projects. In the Revenue Code section, in 48-8-200, we will find a newly created article from last year's legislative session called the Municipal Options Sales Tax, called MOST. It'll have to be passed by a referendum of the citizens in the municipality. It will not be countywide at all. It will be in the municipality only. There will be no tax on the groceries. That's usually one of the biggest concerns. Why do I want to tax my groceries? You don't. Statutorily, there is no sales tax on groceries in this particular type of tax. It'll be collected in the county. It'll be in the city, in the municipality only, for municipal purposes as set out in the referendum. It'll have probably a 6-year time window on it, and you will be collecting. You'll be paid monthly by the revenue commissioner as the receipts come in, as filed on the sales tax returns by the vendors. This will be everything from gasoline to Home Depot to the restaurant to the gas station. The biggest thing will be gas station, but there's a lot of other things that go on that will have taxation involved in it, and you can control your own destiny through referendum. Thank you.
Okay. At least a couple of people in the audience are not totally satisfied with how we left the matter of the water problems in the city. So I'm going to return to that for us a minute here. Leslie, you'd be the first to respond to this. These folks want to know, for starters, what we mean when we talk about water leaking. And second, they want to know why the delay in dealing with the problem, if it's a problem of such long standing, why hasn't a plan been developed well before now? So let's see if we can respond to that as best we can. Leslie, with you starting.
Trying to think through the question again. I apologize.
Well, water leakage and delays in dealing with it.
This is a common problem, I'm sure, not just around our state, but around the country in older communities. And it's real easy sometimes to put off the things we don't see, that are in the ground, that aren't pretty. You get a lot more attention for building parks and doing things like that. The water leakage itself, we have older infrastructure. Since I've gotten on council, it has been a priority for us to take a more aggressive approach to replacing that infrastructure and the pipes, because we talked about everything from they're old, decaying, some of them are too small, they don't have the water pressure they need, and so that is happening. It's going on. I can't speak to what happened years ago as to all the reasons, but I do think that speaks to the fact of having stability in your management and professional staff that drives this and notices these things. So where that water is leaking, we don't know exactly, but it sure would save us a lot of money and give us a lot more water supply if we could find it. But that's the reason the infrastructure has to be replaced. That's why it's the most important thing we're dealing with right now. That and probably the debt on the wastewater plant. They've got to be the top issues. I hope that answers it adequately.
Okay, and Danny?
Yeah, water loss, it's hard to find. It's been going on for a long time, and it's hard to find water that's coming up places you're not looking. So we are putting together a plan, sectioning off the city and trying to isolate where the water's going, because it's got to be going somewhere. It's coming out, and we're measuring it, and we can't find it. But you got old pipes that have rusted and disappeared on you, so water can just ooze out into the ground. It's flowing through the hole in the ground. The pipe's no longer there, so the infrastructure has to be rebuilt. There's no way around it. We've got to put money into the infrastructure and get it corrected so that we know that's not part of the loss. But we also have a plan to go from parts of the city and narrow down how much water is being flowed around that part of the city until we can come up with a good idea of where we need to attack this problem. It's definitely a big time problem. We can't afford 300,000 gallon loss of water on a daily basis. Imagine if we could shut that off, how much extra money we would have, how much extra water we'd have. We wouldn't have to buy that 300,000 gallons like we have to do. We can't supply our water, but we wouldn't have to buy as much. So that's the plan.
All right, and Larry?
It has recently come to light on a report from the Water Department management that there's a pressure and difference between the city of Villa Rica and Carroll County. And we had more pressure than Carroll County did, and we're actually, even though we'd be in, say, a neutral position, because we had more pressure, we were actually flowing water back into Carroll County, into the Carroll County system. Unfortunately, their meter doesn't read backwards, so we basically gave them free inventory. Another issue we could look at and probably should implement is a meter replacement. That will help us with getting more accurate reading on our actual dispensing, what we're actually dispensing out to the what the consumers are actually consuming. I was reading in the manager's report tonight that we have about a third of the water customers are delinquent. So while we may have I think even we can fix, where all the water really is, are we ever going to get paid? We're trying to work on that problem as we're implementing a new billing cycle and a billing strategy and collection strategy to help that. I also believe that the valve billing, or the meter billing, has not been correctly addressed either, from a discussion in the the budget cycle and discussion of last year, where we determined that certain water valves and meters were not being billed correctly or at all by the city, and therefore there was a loss of revenue. Thank you.
Okay, and Bernice?
I'm baffled at the fact that with all of the technology that we've got, that we don't have a comprehensive plan that will let us know where the leaks are. My suggestion is this: if 3,000 gallons are leaking, then we ought to have some people out there with some of this technology to find out. And I know it's going to cost, but what you have one in one hand and one in the other. Do you want 3,000 gallons of water leaking, or do you want to correct the problem? So my suggestion is that we need to replace meters, and of course that costs money. But on the other hand, though, you have to look at checks and balances. What I would propose is that we put a plan out there. Tell the taxpayers what it's going to cost and let them hold us accountable for that. And move on. I know times are tough when we have to budget at home as well as any place else, but we need to look at the infrastructure, correct it, and then move on. I've sat in this council chamber for a number of years, and basically every meeting it's about water. It's about infrastructure. So let us work on a plan, phase it in, and get this problem solved.
All right. Thank you. Well, after all of that discussion, we'll give you an easy question here. Danny, this will be first. I'm being facetious. You'll be the first to respond. There are no easy questions. The first to respond to this one. What is your position on alcohol sales in restaurants in Villa Rica? This person wants to know.
Okay. Let me correct one thing. When he said it's not 3,000. If it was 3,000, we'd be ecstatic. It's 300,000.
Thank you.
Okay.
Correct. 300,000.
Yeah, alcohol sales, I have no problem with alcohol sales. I'm establishing a vote for alcohol licenses. I'm not, the problem is not the sale alcohol, it's the people that drink it, and if we police that part of it and keep it on the honest, don't let people drive when they're drunk and all that, alcohol would not be a problem. It's kind of like, it's not the gun that kills the person, it's the person who holds the gun. So we just have to control the alcohol sales and make sure that they keep it out of the hands of minors. But I don't have a problem with selling alcohol in the city.
All right. And Larry?
Thank you. Alcohol sales in restaurants are one of the necessary items that the restaurant industry sees for their success. The customers wish to consume and be responsible, and to go have a good time while they're out and enjoy their time out at their meal. DUIs are up, however, as I see on the police report in the manager's report this week. We have to try to understand that people need to be responsible. And if they're responsible, they will act responsible, and they will not be on the DUI report. There's another issue in the alcohol sales and city government. As I spoke about the most tax a moment ago by a referendum, package sales should also be a referendum issue. And you should have the ability to say, as a community, to the government, we either do or we do not want package sales in our jurisdiction. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And Bernice?
Well, I take this position. As for me and my house, we may not do that. But if it's for revenue for the city to help the city grow, I have no problem with that. Because if we don't sell it here, they're going to go to the other counties. So if that's going to be something that will help us move forward, I don't have a problem with it. But I do know what's going to come in my house.
Okay. All right. And Leslie?
I don't drink, but I do believe in freedom. And so it's not for me to make all those decisions for everyone else. This is a a revenue thing for restaurants and things like that. And the fact is, the people that we worry about that drink too much seem to be able to find it no matter what you do.
That's right.
I had a citizen mention to me the other day that they were in a restaurant where they had a lapse in the time between their license. They had to get a new one. There was a change in, I think, the name, or going from a nonprofit status to a profit status. And they mentioned the fact that they saw a number of people turn around and leave that restaurant when they found out they could not have wine with their dinner. That may not be a big deal to me, but it's a big deal to some other people. And so, my stance is basically, if there needs to be a referendum on something, which we don't need on this, package sales is another issue, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, thank you. This is an issue that really is a more direct or current relevance in a neighboring city just down the road. But we'll ask it here as well. Should candidates for local office be required to have criminal background checks? And Larry, you will be the first responder on this one, please. Candidates for local office and criminal background checks.
Playing with the button here. I see no reason why a applicant or a candidate for public office should not be able to go forward and make an application for a criminal background check with the police department. Have the police department and post what results are. There's no problem with that. Thank you.
Okay, Bernice?
I don't have a problem with that. If you have been that kind of a citizen where you're upright and you have just a fender bender, you won't have a problem with a criminal background check. And I think it would be good for basically any officer who wants to be in the public eye. If you don't agree to it, some way, somehow, the information get out. So, I don't have a problem with background checks.
Okay. All right, and Leslie?
Well, I know this has come up in the newspaper recently in a city near to us. I hadn't really thought through the process of if I thought it should be required or not. My personal opinion is probably not as a requirement, because to be honest, in these days and times, with all the information that's out there on people, now the thing is, we have a charter that has certain requirements to qualify as a candidate. The state also has certain requirements. And my guess is that between the media, and that is their job to be a watchdog, between them and all the people that know how to Google things, there's probably a good chance that you're going to find out anything you want to know and probably some things you don't want to know without having to require a background check. So I'm not crazy about the idea, but to be honest, I wouldn't be dogmatic about it until I spent a lot more time thinking through it, maybe talking to people, maybe unintended consequences. Sometimes we think something sounds like a good idea. We haven't vetted it well, and we realize afterwards it has some consequences we hadn't foreseen. So I'd have to bat that one around a little more.
Okay, thank you. And Danny?
I would be all for criminal background checks on local officials running for office, because I think the people have a need to know. I don't think we need to rely on gossip and things floating around. I think they really need to know who they're voting for. They need to know what's in their background. You don't find out later that you voted in someone that has a shady background, then what you going to do, keep an eye on them real close? I think it's a good idea personally that everybody should have a criminal background check, local and up, especially up.
Okay, thank you. A member of the audience has brought in a sample of her are you the lady who did this, brought in the water? Prior to your coming in, I want to assure you that we had several questions directed to the council member, to the candidates.
Watching video online.
Okay, good.
Quit my job tonight just because of the water issue.
There is, this woman has brought this in as an example of the kind of sediment that collects in some of the water in this city, and has stressed the need for action. Several other persons have stressed similar concerns, so we appreciate you, and we'll make sure that everyone here has a chance to see what you brought in. Question concerning senior tax exemption. What is your stance? This person wants to know on the city's senior tax exemption. Can the city afford exemptions given the problems that it faces? And Bernice, it falls to you to respond to this one first.
Okay, thank you. I have listened to a number of seniors, and they are stating to me that it's real difficult for them to pay higher taxes, get medicine, and buy food. And in many instances, they have to make a choice. Some which say they can't afford it. And I'm under the opinion if seniors are given a life service to Villa Rica, that there should be some sense of exemption. These individuals shouldn't have to choose between one or the other. We have got to find ways to assist them in whatever their needs are. Food banks are not enough. We must assist by providing other supplements. In my personal opinion, a higher tax amount is the key.
Okay. Leslie?
We are a senior household in my home, but let me just say, this is a real shame the way this went down. I mean, it was painful for people. I spent some time on the phone talking to some seniors that were very concerned. When you open your bill and find out that it's double what it was, you know, that's a little shocking. And so let me answer the question by giving just a little bit of history. When this exemption was put in, it was meant for low-income seniors. And we're in two counties. We have Carroll County, Douglas County. At some time after it was implemented correctly, something happened in Carroll County and they started to exempt all seniors from it. Well, it came to light that, first of all, it's illegal to tax people differently, right? And it was brought to our attention that it was unconstitutional, so basically it was null and void. As soon as we realized what had happened, we started to address the issue. We wanted to get it on a special election last March, a special ballot and have a special election, but we found out through the state that it could not be retroactive. So it didn't make sense to spend the money for that election. So it will be on the November ballot. And when it comes right down to it, the truth of the matter is, I don't know that it matters how much we feel as much as it matters how much the citizens feel. And that's why it's on a ballot, for the citizens to decide what they want. And I urge people to get out and vote that day, because it's on with us, and it's a very important issue.
And Danny?
I am the one that sponsored in 2004 the senior tax exemption, and it was aimed at low-income seniors to help them out. Unfortunately, I imagine in my imagination, I think probably Carroll County, when they did the school tax exemption for all seniors, somehow phased that around too, and next thing you know, all the seniors in Villa Rica are getting an exemption. It's a hard thing to see when you open up your tax bill, and I feel for the seniors. I'm an advocate for the seniors. You open up your tax bill and suddenly it's several $100 higher. You know, we don't have a lot of money to go around when you're senior, you're on fixed income. So I can understand. I've heard a lot of calls from seniors, and I can feel for them. I did sponsor I've sponsored all the discounts for the senior citizens. I've been spokesperson for the seniors. That was long before I became a senior too. So it came to light, like Ms. McPherson said, after a long point of time, it finally came to light last year. The Georgia Constitution, Article 7, Section 2, Paragraph 2 says that you cannot have an exemption, a tax exemption for a special group of people unless you have a referendum. And we did not have a referendum back in 2004 when we implemented this thing. So I can see why we took it away, but we're not going to give them anything under an exemption if we can get it passed in November. And I don't think this issue is going to die. We're going to still work on helping the seniors out some more.
Okay, thanks. And Larry?
The senior tax exemption is not income-based, so if anyone who is over 65 and owns a home as their principal domicile, they'll be eligible for the exemption if it passes. And I know we're all going to go to the polls and we're going to vote for this because it's all in our best interest. While we don't want to look at higher taxes as a reason for getting along with our lives, we want to have that as kind of as kind of the back burner issue that it is available to us. But the senior exemptions need to be, this little problem just needs to be ironed out, worked out, and taken care of. I've been sitting in city council meetings as a citizen observer, for over 23 years. And when Mr. Carter introduced this piece of legislation in 2004, it was, I thought, needed a referendum, and I think the city attorney did too, but for whatever reason it fell through the cracks. It was voted through, had its 2 hearings, public hearings. That was what Mr. Mecklen, the city attorney, determined was necessary, and that's what we went with. So be it right or wrong, that's what the road we went down. And I guess, although I'm not an elected official, I will say this: I will apologize for any inconveniences that it has caused to the taxpaying public. And I ask that you come back and rectify that little problem by coming to vote on November 7th and vote for the exemption. And that's all of the city. All 5 wards vote for the exemption. Not just Ward 3, Ward 5, all wards vote.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have time for one more question before we move to opening statements, or closing statements, rather. Leslie, this will be yours to respond to first. This,
Was that my name?
yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, I think they're done now. All right. Why do you believe that Villa Rica continues to have so many, this person says, continues to go through so many city managers, and what steps will you take to ensure that a quality candidate remains?
I need to be able to see. You know, the statistical average for city managers is 2 to 3 years. Now, I don't think that's good, and I don't think that's something we should shoot for. I think we should shoot higher than that. And I can't deny that there's been quite a bit of turnover in this city. And I think there's a number of us that have determined that we're going to put an end to that. We really are happy and feel real good about the recent hire of our city manager. You know, you interview people, you check some references, you read their applications. When it comes right down to it, until they actually are doing the job, that's when you really know who you've got. And so you try to do those other things, and if it comes up short, I don't know, should you continue on if you feel like it's not the best for the city? Sometimes there's a problem with maybe not being clear on our expectations of what we're looking for and what they're expecting when they come here. You know, I go to GMA classes and interact with other cities that sometimes struggle in the same area that we have in that way. The other thing, as far as not just getting one, but retaining your city manager, I think it's really going to have to be a team effort. Something where they feel supported. And another thing I feel real strongly about is that the roles that we play have to be respected. City manager has certain responsibilities, staff does, council does. And we have to stay within those respective roles, so we're not directing the city manager in a way we're not allowed to, or that's, you know, crossing over the bounds and that sort of thing. And I think sometimes you've had something that's happened in the past, you make a concerted effort to change it for the future.
All right, thank you. Danny?
Okay, a quick correction on the referendum that you're going to see on the ballot. It's not for total exemption. This all down is for an $8,000 discount off of your net value. That's what the referendum is about. We'll never see the total one again, I don't believe, because it's a lot of money that goes down. Now, for the city managers, we end up getting over 100 resumes from people applying for the job, of all types of people. We have to read through these things. The council does, 6 people in the council, narrow it down to 5 to have 5 people to interview. Once we get through with those interviews, we discuss them, and we narrow it down to 3 to bring 3 back for a second interview. And then based on each one of our impressions, 5 or 6 impressions, we select a city manager. And each one of us has a different idea of what a city manager, what background, how he should be. You know, we each have a different impression of the people. All you can do is go with the majority and hope that the majority of the council has a good feeling about the city manager you're fixing to hire. You don't know really if you're a good city manager you've got until he starts working for you. And that's the problem we run into. We've hired, I didn't hire the first one, it was already hired before we got here, but I hired the second one and found out we had problems we didn't know about. And so we're not looking, and I think we finally found what we need to fit with Villarica. We have a good city manager who's going to lead us to where we need to be. Thank you.
Thank you. And Larry?
Okay. The job of city manager is a very complex job, and I would ask you just to look at what state law is actually thrown at the city manager, along with the city charter, city code, police department. You've got a lot of complex issues, from water, sewer, signs, roads, air pollution, the feds, Department of Transportation. Oh, they say roads again? Yeah, roads. They're in there too. A lot of times the managers and the staff's idea of where to go is drawn from the direction given by the city council. However, for whatever reason, there's unfortunately happens to be a change of direction. And sometimes the message is missed by the manager. Now, Mr. Carter is very, very correct in that we have had some managers who have come here under false pretenses. We thought we had hired qualified people, and I thought we were going to be okay with them. Unfortunately, we found out that things were just not as advertised. So the manager and the council need to work together, talk together. You don't need a party together, but you do need to play together and be able to work things out and come to a mutual agreement and try to get your priorities together. And I think if we do that, we'll have a successful city management under a very successful city manager. Thank you.
Okay. And finally, Bernice.
Well, my idea is that as a team player, that there has to be a team effort. And in that effort, business, the roles and responsibilities of the city manager should be made as clear as possible. And then after you have done that, then as Mr. Corn has said, there needs to be time when you sit down and work on certain issues. We all have different personalities, and what you think you had at one point, you may not have it at the other point. But then we have to agree to disagree on some instances. And I would believe that it's going to take some time for a city manager to settle in, and of course to learn citizens in the community, and of course work closely with the council and the mayor. So it's going to be a team effort, and I think we've got a good fit, and hopefully we can all say 2-3 years from now that we've passed that hurdle of where we're getting a manager every other year.
Okay, thank you. That's all the time we have for questions this evening, so we'll go now to the closing statements, and we'll begin with Larry.
As the son of a past president of the League of Women Voters, I wish to thank the League and the voters of Villa Rica for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. The League has done many good deeds in furthering voting rights. We have heard many ideas, thoughts, and wishes for the future based on our past. Things like infrastructure, cooperative agreements, interagency, and the like sound overwhelming to the average citizen. I will try to make this easier for the average citizen of Villa Rica to understand. The role of city government is to give you basic services. The actions by your city brings us parks, a new library, the police, water and sewer treatment, paved roads, and streetlights, to name just a few. We must plan for the future, too. TADs, splash parks, and hotels and a conference center are on our horizon. Our new city manager, Tom Barber, has identified an engineer to take on the duties of the planning and community development. This will help us map out our future in water, sewer, and roads. We're taking back the building inspectors' jobs from the county and making them full-time employees. We have seen a 15% or more increase in our tax digest for 2017 due to buildings, new buildings, homes, and growth. There is a manufacturing expansion going on in our industrial parks. There's an expansion of the hospital here in Villa Rica, too. There's a new health care benefit plan for the city employees. These are changes we see as beneficial for the employees and the taxpayers. Our Chief Financial Officer, Sarah Hefty, has given us a very good budget forecast. We're on a very sound financial footing due to her sound guidance. The water billing cycle and the fiscal year changes are Sarah's ideas to make the city stronger financially. A strong police department keeps the city and her citizens safe and secure. Yes, your taxes, and mine too, have gone up due to the Douglas and Carroll County property reevaluations. This is part of the growth as we see as a positive sign of strength for our communities. I will help to make Villa Rica a leader in the Carroll Douglas County community. There's a silver lining to this election. You can make $50 going to the polls. Vote yes on the homestead exemption will lower your taxes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And Danny?
Okay, in my opinion, the homeowner is carrying way too much burden because they pay most of the property tax in the city, and so their burden is very high. So I have fought during my first term and the second term, I have fought to bring that millage rate down. Every year, all 8 years, I have fought to bring it down. In 2003, when I came into the council for the first term, it was at 7.02. When I left, it was at 6.775. When I came back in 2013 to run again, that millage rate was still at 6.775. It's got stagnant for all the time I was gone. And now we got it down to 6.365. I think that the The homeowners deserve a break. They deserve to have some of this burden shifted over to other revenue sources. With the construction ongoing like we have, I believe that can be done. I'm wanting to see a lean, efficient city government. I don't want to see any fat, so we don't control fat. One of the things you learn as a new city council member is that you must gain the trust and respect of all the other council members before you can get them to support your projects and ideas. I have developed a good working relationship with this council, and all the council members, I believe I have their trust and respect. I have enjoyed serving the citizens of Villa Rica, and I would love the opportunity to continue serving them. And I want to thank you all for being here tonight for this forum. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Leslie?
Integrity. It may not be the only thing you need, but if you don't have that, nothing else counts. At this critical time in the city, it's not really the time for us to vote for who's our friend, who's our neighbor, who we've known for a while or who we like, or who's related to our family. It's the time to vote for the person who has integrity, experience, knowledge of the big challenges we face, someone who will hold government accountable for your money, someone who put the time, the energy, and the effort into getting the job done. That's my commitment to the citizens of Villa Rica.
Okay, and Bernice.
Initially, I must build trust with other ward members so that we can give some serious thoughts to all of the aspects of the issues. My passion is making Villa Rica a better place. I want to do that by stating citizens are number one in the city of Villa Rica. Just for your information, I will focus on these issues: safety, current water problems, senior tax exemption, and reverse parking. There are many other issues, however. Those stated above are my top priority. Finally, I am VR, and I will work for all citizens. I need your support, and I need your vote November 7th. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, candidates, and thank you all for coming here tonight and asking good questions. And we are adjourned.
Thank you, Miss Leslie.
I couldn't hear my microphone either, and I knew the light was on when I first started to speak. I could hear them when they were talking to the microphone.
Work hard for you.
Thank you. Now it's very good.
I have so many pens in my house. Hey, Mayor. You mind if I keep the scribbles gravels?
Thank you.
Made it through.
Yeah, we made it through.
Thank you, Elise. I know you had to be there.
Thank you
Here
much.
for us after working all day.
Thank you.
And your hands are like